we've got cycles to spare. The architecture's brilliant, this design ain't gonna fail. Cause the problem's not the code, it's between the keyboard and the chair. It's an undocumented feature, did you even read the spec? Because I tried it yesterday and it ran just fine and check. Is it really such an issue? It will cause electric shock. It works, it works, it works on my box.
Hi, I'm Alan Page. This is BJ Rawlson and Ken Johnston are with me, and we're the authors of How We Test Software at Microsoft, Microsoft Pressbook, available from your favorite book retailer. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 3, which is about engineering systems at Microsoft. And probably the most important thing there is that there isn't one way to make software at Microsoft. Every team gets to decide however they want to do it. And, with that freedom comes some responsibility, of course, to do things the right way. But we have teams that do more structured approaches and teams that do much more, I wouldn't say ad hoc, but agile approaches, which are very good. And we've done a lot of experimenting, and we're always experimenting and tweaking our processes. So that's kind of where I want to start with. I end up talking to a lot of, and just jump in here whenever you want.
Oh, yeah.
I end up talking a lot to customers. They ask, how do you make software? What's your secret sauce? And I tell them the same thing. We don't have any secret sauce. We just kind of do our thing. They ask, are you waterfall? And I say, of course not. I had mentioned waterfall in the book a little bit. It's funny that the author of the waterfall model, Winston Royce, never meant it to be used non-iteratively. He thought, you repeat these stages, at least 2 times, and so do at Microsoft. We do very much an iterative approach. If you're going to compare what we did to standard approaches, we'd be closest to the spiral model for most products we've worked on, where we do an iteration where we plan, we do some work, we go through what we call milestones, which
well,
is
you guys were both actually in Windows and experienced that from the Windows experience. You talked about it in the book, but BJ, what was your experience with Windows?
We were on the same team, so
Oh.
it was pretty much, it was almost identical.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, it was identical.
You guys did the same release, that's right.
BJ and I were on the Windows 95 team, and he started before, but I joined right around the time of Windows Milestone 6. And I think we had 12 milestones.
12
shipped.
milestones?
It was a long product.
It was a long cycle.
And some of those we shipped, some we didn't. So it's kind of a way of getting to a checkpoint. You kind of go through the process of triaging bugs and making some of the same decisions you make to ship. I used to think of it as like practicing to ship.
But it's the milestone process that probably is what's one of the key things about our development life cycles is that in the spiral model, at key stages in our development process, we have these things called milestones, which are very hard breaks, usually driven by the needs of the customers when we have to hit betas and things like that. And so, very similar to how agile methodologies have sprints, we have these things called milestones.
Wow.
Some of our milestones tend to be a little bit longer than the average sprint, but it's the same basic concept.
Well, I'm working in Office right now, and we're just, literally today, we were having the management discussion about, ratcheting up the bug fix bar as we enter fork for beta 1. And so we have to, there's always new managers every product cycle, so we want to re-review what those criteria are. But this is the end of we had an M1 coding milestone, an M2, we've had an alpha milestone, and now we're into our beta 1 milestone. And each time, just like your experience, the bar gets a little higher, you take fewer changes, fewer DCRs, and you really focus on shipping. And so Office really follows that spiral milestone model that we talked about.
And we also do a lot of agile development at Microsoft, especially in the services world. We're doing those quick sprints. We're borrowing a lot of things from the agile community. And then we've even found some ways, and Ken, you can have this if you want to, or I can. We've done some ways to kind of take agile and adapt it to a very large team through the use of what we call feature crews.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about those a little
Well,
bit?
and feature crews, one of the reasons I'm working in Office is it's very successful, and it was one of the first places we used feature crews. And a feature crew is very much like a Scrum team. It has developers, testers, program managers, and in fact, actually, one of my own dev, test, and PM teams, we actually practice Scrum within this Office milestone model. So we actually have a little bit of a sprint, we have our backlog chart, and we actually do some of those activities that you would normally consider agile, but we're doing them in the context of what we call a feature crew, which is part of a larger entity and is really focused on this major integration with Office, because Office wins when we integrate well. So we can't just have everybody doing whatever they want. So there is a master plan, but within that subsection, you can then have these little agile teams, the feature crew, and it's really working well for Office.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things I've seen of feature crews is that you have typically your project manager or program manager, your tester and your developer, or maybe 2 or 3 of each, and they're building a sub-feature within the product, and so they have the daily scrums. They are daily meeting and working and solving problems for that particular feature, and then at a much larger level, you have the project-oriented team, or you have the whole team that is really guiding the overall project. So sort of within the spiral process could be these mini agile processes that are spawning.
Yeah, and I think I'll wrap that up and say it kind of loops back to what I said at the very beginning. If we didn't give every team at Microsoft the freedom to experiment with how they make software, we never get a chance to experiment in how we get these things to work together. And we're always playing with stuff. We always want to get better at how we make software. We're always looking to improve how we do and what we do. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and absolutely. As technologies change, as delivery cycles change, as our delivery mechanisms change, and we move from a shrink wrap to service, we have to be able to continue to evolve and develop our processes.
Good. All right, so I think we'll close there. Next time in Chapter 4, we're going to talk a little bit about test design, and I hope you come back and see us then. Again, the book is called How We Test Software at Microsoft, and it's available from Microsoft Press, or you can find more information at www.hwtsam.com. Thank you.
It's an unlikely core scenario. Will our users even care? Cause a redraw's not an issue when they've got cycles to spare. The architecture's brilliant, this design